Um, in the serial that we um, follow the path of the very ancient history of the planet Earth, and consequently in also history of our uh, human kind. There is so many empty spaces that we cannot uh, link with the other events or with the other artifacts that we want to find out what we actually see. Although it looks is at the right of our very eyes. What I'm actually talking about. The whole planet Earth, all continents, all over the places. There are, there are countless, countless of artifacts, um, unknown buildings, uh, divine temples, and the places that are obviously made by the humankind and that we don't have a clue what these artifacts mean and what was their purpose. We just see the things, but we cannot comprehend nothing about their essence, why these things are where they are, and what these things means to the humankind nowadays, or to the people which they build these edifices, temples, structures, and so on and so forth. The Europe continent is practically abandoned, like every other continent is abandoned of plenty of uh, structures of mysterious kind. There is a countless of theories about each of these structures, but no one have actually real answer to the question what these structures are and what was their purpose on this earth. One of them is, let's start from one of them. Is well known structure that is known as a Stonehenge. That structure that is being visited by the millions of people from every corner on this world is still mysterious as it was 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 500 years ago. Because although scientists nowadays can um, can say strictly the chemical compounds and measured every possible angle in all three-dimensional presentation. But asking the question what that edifice actually mean, what was the purpose of it, and how those people actually came to an idea to build and create that thing. In a very recent time, a scientist discovered that the Stonehenge was made from no less than two different kind of stone, and that one is closest to, well, let's say 400 or 500 kilometers away from the Stonehenge, and the other is 1 or 2 thousand miles away from Stonehenge, from two totally different uh, part of the world. Although it's not too distant each from the other. The one is from the Cornwall and the other one is from Ireland. I mean, type of stone. Why they choose to make that structure out of two, no less than two different type of stone with the different properties, acoustic properties, uh, thermal properties, chemical properties, and all sorts of properties that those two different type of stone contain. And if there is no any previous model that they've seen or that they've used, how do they know that this structure will fulfill the function that they think of? Because we must believe that people at that time, people of any time, when they create something, they always have at least some ideas what that structure will uh, be built for. I can't imagine that any society, no matter how primitive they are, that they will just came to an idea, all right, let's build some structure, but we don't need to have any meaning of it. We'll just build for the sake of building. That is not the way it works. I'm absolutely certain that the people were aware, the whole, from the top to the bottom, each of them, each individuals that was involved in that project knew what he's doing. I knew why that building is built. What would be the benefit of that building, and why on the certain place, not on the other place? Why they build Stonehenge as a unique structure? Why there is no any other Stonehenge anywhere in the island of nowadays known as United Kingdom of the Great Britain? So they build one Stonehenge and then forget that art, because it is actually art, apart from the fact that I may believe that it is some kind of some kind of use for that structure. I can't believe it that they create that structure just for the sake to know when to put the seeds in the soil. It can't be. It can't be because to be able to find out the time when you put that seeds into the soil, you don't need any sort of sophisticated device. You will just feel with your own bare hand, palm, if you put on the soil, and if soil is warm or warmish, you know that it's time to put the seed. Or if days are longer, if air is warmer, uh, if everything start to grow and blossom, you know that is a time to put your seed. And they don't need, some of scientists said, that they actually build the Stonehenge just to mark the time of the solstice and equinoxes. For me, that is a nonsense. Why would person 5.5 years ago need to know when, what day is the longest day in a year? Or in opposite, what is the shortest day in a year? Now we are the humankind that live in a much more sophisticated society. But who of us, except the very narrow group of the people called scientists, why we are not bother which day in a year is the longest day in a year? Because there is no any significant in it. We live our lives, everyday life, without not knowing what is the longest or shortest day in a year. Why? Because that is not important in our life whatsoever, and we can't use that except in a scientific uh, researches, in cosmology or that type of science, but in a everyday life, longest or shortest day in a year doesn't bother us at all. We don't think of it. So, although we are a modern people, how less important the same thing would be for the man 5,500 years ago. We actually don't know exactly when that Stonehenge was built, but let's accept the fact that it was built between 4.5 and 5.5 years ago from today. So it is obvious that Stonehenge had some different purpose that we get used to it nowadays, and it was far beyond just pure symbolism or worshipping the god or goddess or spirits or some other type of supernatural beings. I'm absolutely sure that that was not the purpose. And I'm absolutely sure that the other purpose that I previously mentioned, which means to give those people that live in those times, to give them mark when they should put the seeds in the soil and later on harvesting the same stuff. It cannot be because it's not sensible. So what was then else that people give such enormous task to brought these enormous stones from such a great distance, although they have almost the same type of stone, much closer than to go there and choose two distinctive types of uh, of the stones of the raw stone, that they shape it, then um, transported hundreds of miles that no one knows how, because we have some uh, frame of mind that they don't have nothing except stone tools, and they go all through these trouble to brought these megalithic stones to create this structure that we now don't have a clue why they did it so. What was their motive to make it? And why it is now simply forget, and it's there and it's fascinating, but without any clue what was essence of making such a megastructure, which in those time must be mm, no less complicated than make a journey to the moon and back. In comparison with with the technical and sophisticated data that we have now and that they had then. It was huge task. It was enormous task, and people did it. So, and that is not we cannot. We have no right to, for example, watch the only Stonehenge and then extract from the whole picture of the planet that humankind lived in it. Why? Because everything is interactive, each with the other. Stonehenge is not something that we can exclude from all the other megastructures that they are created on this planet. Why? Because then that will not have any sense. So the only conclusion that own self could make it as regard the Stonehenge and many, many thousands other edifices is that people, humankind, on any place in the world actually knew what he's doing when he's doing these megastructures. Fact that we have no any clue what it is doesn't mean that they don't have that they don't have their own purpose itself. So that those these huge empty spaces and the gaps in between the part of the history that we need to know in order to understand ourselves. Like Carl Gustav Jung said in one of his books that he's got impression that the whole human race have some kind of amnesia about the distant past, or maybe also probably with the recent past. But let's now concentrate on the distant past. That we simply suppress by one reason or the other facts that we have some sort as a race, not as a kind, as a humankind, that we suppress the part of the history and part of the knowledge that we had at that time. Because it is obvious that when they make, let's talk now about Stonehenge, uh, that they have some kind of idea what they plan to do and what that structure will be in a meaning of essence, in a meaning of purpose, how they will dealt with that mega structure. Obviously, uh, they see something that will be useful. That structure will in a way, one way or the other, in make their life better, or it will be some kind of uh, advance. Uh, but definitely the reasonable purpose to make these effort to create such a megastructure in use. And we still don't know whether our ancestors, as we comprehend them through the books, through the schools, through the signs that teach us that our ancestors were wild beasts, ugly, aggressive, people that fight against each other right up to the point of extinction. My point of view is that was not true. My point is that people much more were aware of the life on the earth, that they communicate each with the other in a very humane way, and that they exchange the knowledge, no matter how rich or poor knowledge it was at that time. But I would rather say that the knowledge was very rich at that time, because I'm impressed with all these structures and mega structure that they are all over the world. I said in not long ago that when I was on Malta, I see these what they called nuragas. Everybody who went to Malta saw, or even you don't need to go to Malta, you can simply type it nuragas, and you will see the huge mega structure, old no less than 3.5 4,000 years ago. That there are walls between 5 and 8 meters wide, 5 to 7 8 meters tall. Why those people built these megastructures 3.5 to 4,000 years ago? If they at that time have only spears and stone knives and what you call stone axes, why would they make such a mega structures to protect themselves by 5 to 8 meters thick stone walls? It is out of the sense. So it is obviously that these walls have some other purposes. But again, who taught these people to create that walls? If they didn't have a chance to see anywhere else, why would they make that structures? I'm absolutely sure when I was there, when I watched that these people who create these mega walls, that they were sensible in a clear mind sense, and that they wouldn't create that sort of thing if there is no any purpose for it. Just to be protected from the other tribes that also have a stone knives and stone spears and stone axes. Who uh, who would believe in that nonsense? I was close to the one entrance of the also mega structures on Malta, which is called tunnel. Tunnels, huge, enormous network of tunnels, as as you can read on the by the entrance in a tunnel. It's written on English that these sophisticated network of mesh, I mean of tunnel, goes all through the island of Man. Who built that and what for? And one thing that I also had from the local people is that when you go, they just recently stop. Uh, they just recently stopped to people to go into it because the they lost the couple of people. I mean, children, school children. So they stop entering by making the blockage of metal door. But the local people told me that if you go on the beginning of this tunnel, and if someone else is 2 months away, for example, approximately, for the sake of the argument, that the person A can talk in a normal loud, let's say 35, 40 decibels, and the person B, no matter how distant is from the person A, or on which point in that uh, mesh of these tunnels, that he will hear him with the same power of sound, no matter of the place where he is, or they, the group. Uh, anyone, anyone who is there, who watched that with the open mind, must ask himself, herself, why would they make these tunnels just for the sake so that one can hear order from the very distance? Is it that purpose? Obviously not. Obviously, your um, your sense tells you that that cannot be the truth. So why they then do such enormous task? It's still unknown. and um, our path in this long serial of discussion about our ancient future is not to give you an answer. It is ask you a question. And by asking your question, um, I hope, we hope, that we will expand your mind, or at least um, provoke your curiosity to ask again yourself who we are, why we are here, how we come to be something that we are now. Thank you for being patient while you are listening to me. I love you all, and we will go on in trying to make more question about our very distant past. Thank you.